What if the woman who makes your heart race forgets your name by morning? I'm Mio, and today let's immerse ourselves in a story called Pulse. Enjoy. Under the bright surgical lights, the team prepares for a delicate operation. The lead doctor exchanges a glance with her assistant as the steady beep of the monitor fills the room. In her hands, the heart keeps beating. Such a small organ, but strong enough to keep a whole body alive. How strange that something so fragile can also become part of a love story. After the operation ends, a nurse carefully opens the door with a reminder about the department meeting later that day. Mel looks up, nods, and thanks her. The city hospital stands tall, under the bright blue sky. Inside, a stack of medical files and folders sits on the desk, making it clear how busy things are. A young nurse, blushing, excitedly shares with her colleague how cool she thinks Dr. Mel is. She admits feeling jealous of those who assist Dr. Mel in the operating room and even hopes to date her someday. Her colleague pauses for a moment, visibly puzzled by the nurse's unexpected enthusiasm. She asks if they're talking about Dr. Mel and jokes about whether her admiration makes her a lesbian. The young nurse replies that even if she is, it's not an issue nowadays. She says Dr. Mel's piercing gaze and determination make her even more impressive in surgery, and that she'd melt if Mel ever looked at her directly. Her colleague advises her not to get involved with Dr. Mel. Surprised, the young nurse asks why. She explains that the doctor isn't a typical woman, and that there are stories about nurses and even doctors who've gotten into relationships with her. Mel never really dates any of them seriously, hinting that she's kind of a player. Fascinated, the young nurse reacts with surprise, her cheeks turning red. Her colleague adds that Mel is a lesbian, so she's probably not into serious relationships, and she isn't afraid to break hearts here and there. She warns her not to become one of Dr. Mel's playthings, saying that dating girls might not be that serious, but crossing the line set by Mel would only lead to her getting hurt. Even so, she adds that the doctor still has standards. The young nurse, feeling puzzled and a bit defensive, mutters that she's not that unattractive herself. Dr. Mel feels like a total mystery here. When you hear someone is a player, do you stay away, or does it only make you more curious? Meanwhile, the doctor sits alone in the hospital cafeteria, lost in thought. Suddenly, a tray with food is placed on her table. Surprised, she turns to see who it is, a nurse with bright red hair standing next to her. The nurse asks if she can join, and Dr. Mel, grinning, invites her to sit, saying that no one could refuse such a lovely lady. The nurse chuckles, teasing her about always being such a sweet talker. Looking at Dr. Mel's lunch, the nurse asks if that small portion is enough. Mel explains she's used to eating just that much and doesn't like feeling too full. With a playful tone, the nurse asks if she likes sweets, leaning closer, her teasing nature becoming more evident. Mel's eyes light up as the nurse suggests they could take a sweet break together after lunch. Smirking slightly, the doctor takes a bite of her apple and says she'd like that. In the storage room, Dr. Mel holds the nurse close, and the intensity of the moment overwhelms her instantly. The tension between them is unmistakable, not just in how close they stand, but in the way they look at each other, fully aware of what's happening. There's no hesitation left, no attempt to pull back. Both of them are completely drawn into the moment. The closeness, the tension, the desire are so strong that words stop feeling necessary. After things finally calm down between them, the red-haired nurse mentions that Dr. Dave from Pediatrics is transferring at the end of the month. Dr. Mel adjusts her coat as she listens, her expression serious, while the nurse adds that his colleagues are planning a farewell party and asks if she'd like to come along if she isn't too busy. Mel declines politely, saying she doesn't enjoy crowds and already spends enough time with her co-workers during shifts. As she leaves, she stops for a second and looks back, telling the nurse to stay a bit longer so it doesn't look suspicious. Left alone, the nurse sighs, muttering her annoyance under her breath. Calmly closes the door behind her and heads back to work, her expression steady. Wow, from passion back to her cold demeanor in just a few seconds. Dr. Mel really knows how to build walls around herself. As she walks down the hospital hallway, she thinks about the idea of loving with your heart, but dismisses it as nonsense. To her, heartbreak isn't anything abstract. It's just biology, a mix of chemicals like endorphins and phenethylamine, often called the love drug, released when someone is rejected. She believes that once the body stops producing them, the mind will eventually accept the pain with nothing left to hold on to it. Evening settles over the city, a calm glow filling the room where her phone and keys lie on the table, a quiet sign that Dr. Mel has returned home. Before leaving, she reflects that if you don't want to fall victim to your own emotions, you simply have to stay above them and keep control. Later, she arrives at the pub where the noise of the crowd brings a different kind of energy. Taking a sip of her drink, she thinks it's always better to be the hunter than the one being hunted. With a confident look, she scans the room, her gaze settling on someone across it. The woman notices Dr. Mel's attention and responds with a playful smirk, while Mel doesn't look away. Taking that as a silent invitation, the woman walks over, her smile openly suggestive. Dr. Mel comments on how loud it is, and the woman suggests continuing their conversation at her place. They leave together shortly after. Once inside, things move quickly, their clothes discarded without hesitation. In the heat of the moment, they share a deep and passionate kiss. Their connection grows stronger as they hold each other close, every touch bringing comfort and affection without a word. The room fills with a quiet intimacy. Their emotions come together until nothing else seems to matter but the two of them. Every glance, every tender gesture, it shows just how deep those feelings go. They surrender to the moment, letting emotion carry them to a peak of intensity. The morning silence is broken by her phone buzzing on the nightstand. As the first light slips through the blinds, Mel stirs, letting out a sleepy sigh as her eyes slowly open. She reaches for her phone, grumbling that it's way too early for calls. Still half asleep, she props her head up and looks at the screen, annoyed, muttering in frustration as she tries to understand how this could be an emergency at this hour. As she focuses on the screen, her partner lets out a few sleepy sounds, pulling her attention away. Mel turns toward her, noticing she's still sleeping peacefully. As she looks at her partner, Mel realizes she's not at home and tries to piece together what happened the night before, but she can't even remember her name. She gets out of bed and quickly gets dressed, already distracted by the urgent message she received. Before leaving, she writes a note and places it beside the woman who's still sleeping, thanking her for last night and assuring her she'll call. After such an intense night, Mel was thoughtful enough to leave her a note before heading out. That was actually sweet. With the blue sky above and the buildings becoming blurred by speed, Dr. Mel rides on her red motorcycle, driven by the urgency of the case, drawing closer to the hospital where she works. Mel arrives at the hospital and quickly removes her helmet, stepping inside with a serious expression. The staff immediately recognizes her and rushes to explain that a tour bus accident has left several patients in critical condition, all in need of urgent surgery. Without hesitation, she asks for the patient's chart. She quickly hands her helmet to a nurse, catching her off guard, then moves straight toward the emergency. Dr. Mel listens carefully as the nurse talks about the patient, Paul, 59 years old with a severe head injury and multiple lacerations, barely able to breathe. Without wasting time, she tells them to get him into the operating room immediately. The nurses rush to follow her instructions. In the operating room, under the bright lights, the medical team assists Dr. Mel through a critical procedure. Focused, she calls for suction. As a nurse informs her that the patient's blood pressure is dropping, she works quickly, trying to locate the source of the problem. As his condition worsens and the monitors begin to beep frantically, Mel asks for a hemostat while the team struggles to control the bleeding, working to stabilize him. The situation turns critical when a nurse announces that the patient has gone into cardiac arrest. Tension rises in the operating room as the doctor urges Paul not to give up. The team rushes to save him, shouting for the paddles and preparing to administer the electric shock. Dr. Mel reaches the bathroom and braces herself against the sink, breathing hard after the operation. She tries to steady herself, but before she can fully calm down, a colleague walks in and greets her, breaking the quiet. He tells her he's sorry for how rough her day has been, and mentions that the entire hospital is in chaos because of the accident. Mel listens, though her expression reveals a slight discomfort. Trying to reassure her, he adds that her patient was already in critical condition when he arrived. While washing her hands, she thanks him for his support. Then his tone shifts, and with a playful smile, he teases her about seeing her at Club AL last night. Drying her hands with a towel, Dr. Mel responds calmly, saying she doesn't go to the club often, only when she needs a break or feels a bit adventurous. Smiling, her colleague admits he enjoys hanging out there too and asks if she'd like to go together sometime. Mel smiles confidently, saying she appreciates the offer but prefers to ride solo. After she leaves the bathroom, her colleague murmurs softly, a little disappointed, thinking that the rumors about her independence are probably true. He is a bit pushy, isn't he? Good thing our doctor turned him down right away. In the locker room, changing out of her surgical scrubs, Dr. Mel thinks about how none of this is new to her anymore. For her, the hardest part isn't being in the operating room, but what comes after. She takes a deep breath, tries to clear her mind, and steps into the hallway. Mel stops in front of two anxious visitors and asks if they're here for Mr. Paul. They nod, saying they're his relatives, and visibly worried, they ask about his condition and whether she was the one who operated on him. With a serious expression, Dr. Mel offers her sincere condolences, telling them that despite everything they tried, his injuries were too severe and the blood loss was too massive to save him. After hearing the devastating news, Mr. Paul's daughter breaks down in tears, refusing to accept it, while her husband holds her tightly, whispering words of comfort despite his own grief. Mel watches quietly, her expression steady, showing no emotion, while another person observing everything seems intrigued by her composure. In the newcomer's eyes, the doctor appears heartless, burdened as the bringer of bad news, her cold, impassive face reflecting a lack of emotion. It's something we've all heard before. You don't truly realize what you have until it's gone. People often take things for granted, only recognizing their value when they're about to lose them. This idea applies to so many parts of life and love. Amid all the noise and constant movement, moments of warmth and friendship still stand out. Someone watches a group of friends, laughing and chatting cheerfully. A faint smile forms on her lips as she takes in the atmosphere. As she waits, a nurse approaches and calls her name, Miss Lynn. The nurse tells her the doctor is ready to see her. She stands up, smiles softly, and says she understands, ready to follow. So, the one watching Dr. Mel earlier is a patient too, and her name is Lynn? Interesting. Things have finally settled down, and the hallway is quiet. Someone buys a drink from a vending machine. It's Dr. Mel, seemingly lost in thought, leaning against the railing. She sighs softly, reflecting on the events of the day. Nearby, Lynn watches her in silence, her expression slightly puzzled, unsure whether to approach or not. Lynn walks past Mel, watching her closely, her expression growing more serious. After a few steps, she stops and decides to go over to her. Dr. Mel snaps back to reality, surprised by Lynn's sudden questions. Lynn asks if, aside from her duties as a doctor, she feels any empathy for the families of her patients. Mel turns to Lynn, a little confused and embarrassed, asking if they know each other. Lynn smiles warmly, playfully answering that they don't, not really. She explains that she noticed her earlier that morning and has been wanting to ask her something, hoping she isn't bothering her too much. Glancing more carefully at her badge, she calls her Dr. Mel, then laughs softly and apologizes, explaining that she's nearsighted and forgot her glasses at home today. Dr. Mel looks at Lynn, briefly thinking about how strange she is. Realizing her mind had wandered, Mel apologizes and asks Lynn to repeat herself, admitting she wasn't really paying attention. Lynn starts to introduce herself and tries to ask her question, but she's suddenly interrupted by the sound of Dr. Mel's phone. Glancing at the screen, Mel quickly apologizes and tells Lynn she has to leave because of an urgent case. Lynn is caught off guard by the sudden interruption, watching as Dr. Mel rushes away. Left alone, she smirks and mutters a sarcastic farewell, remarking that all doctors are the same. Well, that ended faster than expected. Lynn barely got to say anything. Now I'm curious what she wanted to ask. After arriving in the radiology room, Dr. Mel examines an X-ray, noting that the condition hasn't progressed too much. She looks over the image carefully and concludes they were lucky to catch it in time, though surgery would still be the best option. The nurse says she'll go inform the patient and their family. Dr. Mel replies that once that's done, they should prepare the operating room. Right after the nurse leaves the room, a fellow doctor walks in and greets Mel, joking that she's still not done. She smiles and says she still has work to take care of. The doctor flips through a file, then examines an X-ray which draws Dr. Mel's attention. As she looks at the image, she becomes more focused, telling him it's an interesting case. He explains that it was recently assigned to him and that the patient is very young. Dr. Mel suspects the condition is congenital, and the doctor agrees, adding that the patient seems to be taking good care of herself. Curious, Dr. Mel asks if it would be too much to look over the patient's history. Her colleague looks slightly surprised, then smiles and reassures her that a second opinion from her would be more than welcome. As she flips through the medical file, she's suddenly taken aback when she realizes the patient is none other than the girl she saw earlier in the hallway. Surprised, Mel remarks that the patient looks healthy for someone with such a condition. The doctor agrees, admitting it's hard to believe she has a heart disease. He goes on to say, it's unfortunate for someone so young to be dealing with this, adding that instead of enjoying life, she'll likely spend much of her time in hospitals. Still, there is hope. A heart transplant could give her a chance at a normal life. However, even though she's on the waiting list, she isn't considered a priority case, and finding a compatible donor for her will be extremely difficult. As she listens, Dr. Mel can't help but wonder how someone with such a severe condition can seem so full of life. A person so cheerful and full of energy doesn't seem like the type to be moving closer to death with every passing day. That's all for today. Thank you for staying with me. We'll discover more of the story together in the next episode. See you soon.